I would like to see her killed.
Christa does not deserve to die. No one deserves to die.
She was sentenced to death.
Imagine being just a teenager, but instead of worrying about school or friends, you're facing a lifetime behind bars. Or worse, a death sentence.
It is therefore ordered that you shall be put to death by electrocution in the mode prescribed by law, and that you shall be transferred to the custody of the warden.
These are kids who committed crimes so chilling, so brutal, that society deemed them beyond redemption.
I've never been in the presence of anyone I thought was pure evil, but to me she's pure evil.
A boy who tortured and murdered his own friend. Another who took a young girl's life just for the thrill of it.
A jury found 13-year-old Lionel Tate guilty. His sentence could be life in prison.
And a teen who turned a school into a war zone, leaving devastation in his wake. Brace yourself as we uncover the chilling cases of teens behind bars, death row, and life sentences. In the Jim Crow South, justice wasn't blind, it was cruel. On March 24, 1944, two young white girls, Betty June Vineker, 11, and Mary Emma Thames, 8, were found brutally murdered in Alcolu, South Carolina. The town needed a suspect, and they found one in 14-year-old George Stinney Jr., a black boy barely 5 feet tall and weighing just 90 pounds. Within hours of his arrest, George was interrogated alone. No lawyer, no parents, no protection. Police claimed he confessed, though no written record exists. His trial on April 24th lasted less than 3 hours. The court-appointed defense attorney, a tax commissioner with no criminal trial experience, called no witnesses and filed no appeal. The jury, all white men. Their deliberation, a mere 10 minutes. The verdict, guilty. The sentence, death. Just 81 days after his arrest on June 16, 1944, George walked into the execution chamber. Too small for the electric chair, he sat on a Bible as a booster seat. At 14, he became the youngest person executed in the U.S. in the 20th century. 70 years later, in 2014, a South Carolina judge finally vacated his conviction, citing a lack of crucial evidence and calling his trial a great injustice. The judge noted it was highly likely that Stinney's confession was coerced. George Stinney Jr. never stood a chance against a system designed to condemn him. His story remains a stark reminder of the racial injustices that plagued and continue to haunt the American justice system. Rest in peace, George. Your innocence was never given a voice, but your story now echoes through history. On May 14, 1985, 15-year-old Paula Cooper and 3 friends knocked on the door of 78-year-old Bible teacher Ruth Pelk in Gary, Indiana. Their plan? To steal money and jewelry. But what unfolded was beyond imagination. Cooper, wielding a 12-inch butcher knife, stabbed Pelk 33 times as her friends ransacked the house. The girls fled with just $10 and Pelk's car keys. The brutality of the crime shocked the nation. In 1986, Paula Cooper, now 16 years old, became the youngest person sentenced to death in Indiana. Her case sparked international outrage. Even Pope John Paul II called for mercy. Over 2 million people signed petitions opposing her execution. Public pressure worked. In 1989, the Indiana Supreme Court reduced her sentence to 60 years. During her imprisonment, Cooper earned a college degree and worked as a tutor. She was released on June 17, 2013, after serving 28 years. Remarkably, Ruth Pelk's grandson, Bill Pelk, forgave Cooper and advocated for her release.
That my grandmother would have had compassion and would not have wanted this girl strapped into the electric chair in the state of Indiana and her life taken from her.
He believed his grandmother would not have wanted Cooper executed. This act of forgiveness led to the creation of Journey of Hope, an anti-death penalty organization. 2 years after her release on May 26, 2015, Paula Cooper died by suicide at age 45. Her death was a tragic end to a life marked by violence, redemption, and ongoing debate about justice and rehabilitation. Cooper's case challenged perceptions of juvenile culpability and the death penalty. It sparked changes in Indiana law, raising the minimum age for capital punishment from 10 to 16. Her story continues to provoke questions about justice, forgiveness, and the possibility of redemption for even the most serious juvenile offenders. On July 28, 1999, 12-year-old Lionel Tate was left alone with 6-year-old Tiffany Unick at his Florida home. By day's end, Tiffany was dead. Tate claimed they were play fighting, imitating wrestling moves from TV. But Tiffany's injuries told a horrific tale: fractured skull, broken ribs, and lacerated liver. The force of the attack was likened to a fall from a 3-story building. Prosecutors offered Tate a plea deal: 3 years in juvenile detention and 10 years probation. He refused. Tried as an adult for first-degree murder, 13-year-old Tate was convicted and sentenced to life without parole in 2001, the youngest in U.S. history to receive such a sentence. The case sparked controversy. In 2004, an appeals court overturned the conviction, ruling Tate's mental competency should have been evaluated pre-trial. He was released after accepting the original plea deal, now with 1 year of house arrest and 10 years probation. Freedom was short-lived. In 2004, Tate violated probation by possessing a knife. He received an additional 5 years probation. In May 2005, he was arrested for the armed robbery of a pizza delivery man. While awaiting trial, Tate violated probation again by possessing a gun. In 2006, Judge Lazarus sentenced Tate to 30 years for the probation violation, stating, "You've run out of chances." Surprisingly, Tate rejected a plea deal on the robbery charge, risking additional life imprisonment if convicted. Tate's case raises hard questions. Was it justice served or a system failing a troubled child? Did multiple chances go wasted, or were deeper interventions needed? The tragedy of Tiffany Unick and the spiral of Lionel Tate continue to provoke debate on juvenile justice in America. What drives a teenager to commit an act so brutal that she becomes the youngest woman on death row?
It is therefore ordered that you shall be put to death by electrocution in the mode prescribed by law, and that you shall be transferred to the custody of the warden.
In 1995, 19-year-old Christa Pike, a troubled teen in a Tennessee Job Corps program, grew jealous of 19-year-old Colleen Slimmer. Convinced Colleen was after her boyfriend, Christa lured her into the woods with 2 accomplices. What followed was pure horror. For 30 minutes to an hour, Christa tortured Colleen, beating, slashing, and carving a pentagram into her chest. Pike and her accomplices used a box cutter and a miniature meat cleaver in the attack. The final blow came when Christa crushed Colleen's skull with a large chunk of asphalt. As a trophy, she kept a piece of Colleen's skull, even bragging about the murder to her friends. Pike's own words sealed her fate. She confessed to police, providing gruesome details of the crime. In 1996, at age 20, Christa was sentenced to death, making her the youngest woman on death row in the U.S. Pike's troubled past came to light during her trial. She had experienced a traumatic upbringing marked by abuse, neglect, and substance abuse. Psychologists diagnosed her with borderline personality disorder, arguing it affected her ability to control her actions. Today, nearly 30 years later, Pike remains the only woman on death row in Tennessee, still fighting to escape execution. In 2001, she nearly strangled another inmate to death, adding an attempted murder conviction to her record. The question of whether Pike should be executed continues to haunt this case, as debates over her mental state and the nature of justice persist. In 1999, Florida siblings Curtis and Catherine Jones, aged 12 and 13, became the youngest children in U.S. history charged as adults for first-degree murder. Their case shocked the nation, but beneath the surface lay a tragic story of abuse and desperation. For years, the siblings had allegedly endured sexual abuse by a male relative.
Dealing with the pain of the sexual abuse that I was experiencing from the age 5.
When their cries for help went unheeded, they formulated a drastic plan to kill their abuser, their father, and their father's girlfriend, Sonia Spites. On that fateful night, overwhelmed by fear and confusion, they shot Spites, striking her 4 times out of 9 bullets fired. Realizing their grave mistake, the children attempted to cover up the crime before fleeing. They were found the next day and faced the daunting prospect of life in prison. To avoid this, they pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and received 18-year sentences with lifetime probation. The courts never heard the full extent of their abuse. Child welfare reports had previously indicated signs of mistreatment, but no action was taken. This failure of the system to protect them went unexamined during their legal proceedings. Curtis was released on July 28, 2015 at age 29, having spent over half his life behind bars. In prison, he found a new direction, becoming an ordained minister. His sister, Catherine, was released days later. Their story raises haunting questions about juvenile justice, the treatment of abuse victims, and the long-term consequences of childhood trauma. Were they criminals, or children failed by every adult meant to protect them? Some were called monsters, others victims of their own circumstances. But one thing is certain, their crimes changed lives forever. A lifetime behind bars, or a seat on death row, became their new reality before they even reached adulthood. But do you think justice was truly served? Should they have been given a second chance? Or were their crimes too horrific to forgive? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to hear more stories that challenge everything you thought you knew, be sure to like and subscribe, because sometimes the most disturbing tales come from the youngest among us.